Is there bad grammar in Cinemark'S no texting warning? The sentence in question is, do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, because we will. It sounds very wrong to me, but I can't put my finger on the exact problem. Nobody on the internet has jumped on this, so I'm wondering whether I'm right about it being wrong. The sentence comes from an announcement which is shown before every movie at Cinemark theaters, at least the ones where I live. It's also on YouTube, this URL. The objectionable sentence is at 026. My best description of the problem is that one of the two ideas that because is linking is missing. The speaker means do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, and don't think we won't, because we will.
Yes, the second half of the phrase is missing, but that doesn't inherently make it bad grammar, that just makes it an ellipsis. Do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, because we will ask you to leave if we have to. I think because is a slightly awkward conjunction in that sentence, which is probably why it sounds a little off. But I don't see anything ungrammatical in it. There's definitely room for criticism, though also for justification. The sentence has two clauses. The first is straightforward and could stand as an independent clause. Indeed, as an independent statement. Do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium. The second only makes sense in the context of that previous clause. We will. On its own, that's meaningless, but in context we will refers to the action that we have mentioned doing. So to rewrite it as a fully independent statement, it is. We will ask people to leave the auditorium if they are texting. Of course, that clause is entailed in the first one. It's stated because people might not believe the rule is actually enforced. So we could rewrite it again as, we really will ask people to leave the auditorium if they are texting. So, two fine clauses, with a sensible relationship to each other, how to stick them together? Generally there are three options. Put one after the other as separate sentences. Do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium. We will. Put one after the other with a comma, semicolon, colon, or perhaps a dash. Do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, we will. Or we can join them with a conjunction. But what conjunction to use? The choice of conjunction reflects the relationship between the two clauses. In this case, the relationship is that the first clause states a situation that you should avoid, and the second that the situation can indeed happen. Some near synonyms with overlapping meanings that are likely suspects here are because, as, since and for. Of these, because can be justified, or condemned. It can be justified, we can interpret it as saying we should avoid being thrown out, and we should do so because the rules with that penalty are being enforced. On the other hand, there's a disadvantage with it. They spend so long talking about the reasons why texting during a movie isn't a nice thing to do, and then they say the reason you shouldn't do so is that you'll be thrown out. Really, the reason not to text in the cinema is not to be a bloody nuisance, and the penalty is there to be a disincentive to people who are bloody nuisances anyway. So if you want to include it as a reason, but not the reason, you might favor the conjunction for. And that is presumably what they mean. But then again, if you aren't that much of a stickler about using because as precisely as that, then you won't care. And since for as a conjunction has a rather formal tone, it makes sense to go for a slightly questionable use of a common conjunction than one that changes the tone from that intended.
My best description of the problem is that one of the two ideas that are because his linking is missing. The speaker means, do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, and don't think we won't, because we will. That would seem to be the intent. The reason it sounds wrong is because the way it's written now is essentially, because we will be the person we ask to leave the auditorium. Which is obviously wrong.
Do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, because we will, means do not be the person we ask to leave the auditorium, because we will be the person we ask to leave the auditorium. It is carelessly written, probably for the sake of brevity or by a victim of an educational system that cares not for accuracy and clarity. We will ask you to leave the auditorium if you, please do not, because we will ask you to leave if you do would be better.
The crucial point is not whether or not it's bad grammar, but whether it does the job intended. As words on the page, it is confusing, but it would be wrong to judge it the way you would judge a piece of written text. In the context of a multimedia announcement, it is clear what is meant.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing.